Ubisoft really likes to follow trends, and while Assassin's Creed Valhalla has not quite released yet, I don't think that it's too early to start talking about the next Assassin's Creed game, and I wanted to go over a few reasons today as to why it's probably going to have something to do with Japan, or at least an Asian type of setting. Now remember, if you do enjoy today's video, to leave it a nice, thick, and juicy like, and if you want more content like this, whether it's Ghost of Tsushima, Battlefield, or Assassin's Creed, then remember to hit that big sexy subscribe button right under the video. Thank you. The first thing I want to talk about is Ubisoft following trends, and of course, I'm sure they're taking quite the look at Ghost of Tsushima and its incredible success so far, be it critically or with fans or financially. Probably looking the most at the financial part of things, but Ghost of Tsushima has a lot of the mechanics that the more classic Assassin's Creed fans really like. It has an emphasis on stealth, which is something a lot of fans have been missing in the recent games, and I think that Assassin's Creed going back to that will not only be attractive to the older fans, but of course the newer fans as well. Ghost of Tsushima also has some light RPG elements, and I think it's something that a lot of Assassin's Creed fans could get behind as a whole, as they're really doing with Ghost of Tsushima. I mean, I've put out a good bit of Ghost of Tsushima content myself on the channel, and you should check those out. They're all my recent videos and live stream, and there's a lot of that, so you should check that out. But I think for Ubisoft, they're looking at it, they're saying this series could work really well with a lot of these mechanics. They sort of kind of did that with Origins, I think a more assassin focused type of game, which Origins was a really good game in the series. I'm not gonna lie, it retained a lot of the classic elements of the series. While it was missing a few things and it wasn't a perfect game, I think it was a really good entry into the series, and it kind of evolved the games enough to where it felt fresh, but it was still Assassin's Creed. The game that came after it, we don't talk about that one. But I think this would be a great kind of middle ground to be able to bring back old fans and new fans, bring them together, and they'll both be able to enjoy this experience as a whole. And not to mention, Japan is a setting that a lot of people have been asking for a very long time. I think it works very well for Assassin's Creed. You have the samurai, you have sort of ninjas and things like that. It's a very intriguing setting, and it doesn't even necessarily have to just be Japan. Obviously, Ubisoft likes to follow different trilogies so they can reuse assets in a way. So like we had, the Ezio trilogy reused a lot of assets. Origins and Odyssey, they reused a lot of each other's assets, very similar settings. Of course, there's kind of the Americas trilogy with 3, Black Flag, Rogue. They reused a lot of each other's assets. It's a very common thing that Ubisoft does just to kind of make their yearly releases a little bit easier. Now, of course, they've kind of stopped with yearly releases, sort of. Even then, they're still releasing games at a fairly fast rate. Even the times that they do skip a year, like they did with Valhalla and with Origins. Now, the other thing I want to talk about in regards to this type of game, why this type of return to stealthiness and things like that is going to be good for the series, is because a lot of people are really yearning for that feeling again. Assassin's Creed can do a great job at making complex parkour along with social stealth and things like that, bring back that more Assassin's Creed feel, and that feeling is something that a lot of fans are looking for again. There's channels like Leo K, for example, who have built a channel around stealth mechanics in the older Assassin's Creed games, along with other games as well, but mostly those games. It's something that a lot of people are looking for, something a lot of people want back, because we really just haven't had that for quite a while now. And while Valhalla seems to be promising because it's bringing back things like social stealth and one-hit hidden blade kills, it still has a lot of that RPG-ness to it that is distasteful to some fans. Personally, I'm excited for the game, and I want to see more of how these types of mechanics work. I want to see how much stealth there really is in the game, and how much of an emphasis there will be on it when we do actually get to explore the open world, or if it's only going to be in set areas, which would be kind of disappointing in a way. But I think if you introduce a Japanese style game or something along those lines, I think stealth can take much more of an emphasis. Another thing I want to talk about, like I was talking about how they may do a trilogy, is we might also see other settings in Asia, because Asia is a very untapped area of the series. There hasn't been a lot there. We saw Xiao Jun in the Assassin's Creed Embers movie where she talked to Ezio, and she seemed to have a lot of importance placed on her just to be thrown into a side scroller, which is something Ubisoft has done with a lot of their interesting female leads, is kind of reduce their role, which is a whole video in itself. But I think a full-on Xiao Jun game in China would be an excellent idea for the series. I think not only could you use a ton of assets from that game in future games, so you could have a bit of a trilogy from it, but I think it's also an excellent way to take a classic character who's also female and give her a lead role in a game, someone that is interesting and does have ties to what is arguably, or not even arguably, just is the best character in the series. Basically directly taught her a lot of what he knew and gave her the mysterious box, because we never really learned anything about that box in the games. It just kind of was like Juno just kind of disappeared from the games and just thrown into the comics or something. I don't know. I don't really follow the comics all that much. I prefer the games. In general, I would like the stories to be finished in the games. It seems like something you should do, but but again, there's multiple other settings. They may not just do China or Japan. They may go somewhere like Southeast Asia, which is something I've speculated on in a lot of previous videos where I talk about possible future settings for the game. I talked about how Angkor Wat would be a very interesting type of setting down in Southeast Asia. It's a very, very cool looking place. I think it presents some really cool parkour opportunities, not only in the city itself, but in the jungles around it. I think there would be plenty of awesome, fresh, new opportunities to be able to do some really cool parkour that is different from the rest of the series. There's, of course, plenty of areas for stealth. I think that could be a very interesting game, and of course I always believe that the more obscure settings in the series make for the best games themselves. I mean, just look at the Ezio trilogy. It's set during the Renaissance, which is a pretty boring history period to study in history class, but the games themselves make it such an interesting and intriguing time period to look at that it makes you very interested in this time period. If you look at ancient Egypt, while it's very interesting, once you get to Ptolemaic Egypt and see all the major characters there, then you're like, wow, this is actually a really cool time period. And numerous things like that. It's a very great thing about these games is it just makes history come alive, and it makes it very interesting because it does try to keep in with the actual history that it is trying to portray, while filling in those gray areas with its kind of mysteries and secret society stuff. That's the fascinating part about these stories and about these different time periods. And it's really what gets you into the series as a whole. I still remember the first time I played Assassin's Creed 1, I immediately went and bought every game in the series up to that point from GameStop that day. It was just, that's how intriguing it is, because it's just such a great series. But anyway, let me know down below what you guys think. Are we going to see an Assassin's Creed Japan game? I know they said they wouldn't do that, but they also said they wouldn't go to ancient Egypt, so here's hoping that we might see Assassin's Creed Japan or some other Asian setting. Like I said, it's a very untapped time period, and I think there's plenty of awesome stories to tell there and plenty of awesome characters and places to explore. So let me know what you guys think down below. I am going to have my 1,000 subscriber special posted soon, so part of that is going to be a Q&A. So make sure you leave all those questions down below so that I can try and answer those in that video. But I hope you liked the video. If you did, remember to leave it a nice, thick, and juicy like. And of course, I will see you guys in the next video.